Hey guys, tonight we slip through the doors of a medieval cottage before dawn has even thought to colour the sky. You're not alone. Nobody is, on a wedding day. Every breath in this house is shared with the hush of family nerves, the rustle of borrowed linen, the muffled voices from the hearth. Tonight, you'll walk through a marriage as a medieval soul, maybe trembling with love, maybe steeled for business, maybe a mix of both. Your feet hit the chill rushes on the floor. In the corner the bride sits on her little stool, an old aunt weaving ribbons into her hair, hands trembling more from excitement than age. "Don't squint so hard, you'll have wrinkles by noon," jokes a cousin, her eyes bright with mischief. Someone else is fussing with the wedding dress, muttering about hems, while the smallest children sneak dried apples from the kitchen table. The air is thick with the scent of bread just pulled from the oven. Someone is already preparing for the post-wedding feast. You notice your own hands fidgeting, nerves singing like plucked lute strings. Here in the medieval world, weddings mean more than rings and a bit of cake. This is a day that will ripple through families for generations. For some, this day is the best thing that will ever happen to them. For others, it's just the start of a long negotiation between love and duty. But the truth is, most marriages walk a line somewhere in the middle. Business deal and fairy tale, hope and calculation, all wrapped up in the nervous laughter of a chilly morning. A cheeky reality check. You probably wouldn't survive the pressure. One wrong word could turn the day from joyful to disastrous. One family snub, one missing dowry item, and the whole village could be talking for months. It's fine, just breathe. You can always blame the goat if things go sideways. So, before we drift any deeper, if this hushed little corner brings you even a flicker of calm, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right in your chest. Let me know where you're listening from and your local time. Maybe you're waking up for a real wedding, or maybe you're just ready to sink into someone else's drama for a little while. Now, breathe slow, let the weight fall off your shoulders, and sink with me into tonight's slow unravelling of the past, right here on Historian's Diary. The morning is moving fast. There's a quiet sense of destiny in the air, even if nobody calls it that. Outside, the men are carrying benches and barrels to the yard. The church bells ring with stubborn insistence, and you catch the first glint of sunlight on someone's best pair of shoes. For the bride, the day began with the softest of prayers, one for courage, one for luck, and a third, whispered only to herself, for a spark of happiness in whatever is about to unfold. You catch your reflection in a small shard of glass, and you're not sure if you look more like a dreamer or a diplomat. "You'll be fine," the old aunt says, tucking a stray ribbon behind your ear. "Love, business, or both, it's all part of the game." The rest of the house is a whirlwind of preparation. The kitchen smells of sweet herbs and roasting onions. The hall is strewn with fresh-cut rushes, and everyone seems to talk at once. The air is thick with expectation, nerves, and that odd hopeful ache that means something big is about to begin. As you help tie up the last of the bouquets, wildflowers and rosemary for remembrance, you wonder what's stronger here, the thrill of love or the gravity of family business. But before you have time to answer, someone calls out, "They're coming!" and the whole house freezes for a single breathless moment. Ready or not, the day has begun, and every heart in the room is pounding with possibility. The village is awake now. Roosters crow over rooftops and the low, steady thrum of footsteps grows in the lane. Clumps of cousins, fathers smoothing hair with spit, mothers gripping baskets of bread and cheese for sharing. Every direction you look, it's people moving toward the same destination, the wedding house. In the heart of it all, you're swept along, caught in the great unspoken tide that pulls families together on this rare day of public hope and private calculation. You pass beneath the open window where the bride's family stands peering out, faces tight with worry and pride. Somewhere in the kitchen, a child giggles at something forbidden, a lick of honey or a stolen grape, and for a moment the world is small and soft. But as you turn toward the yard, the scale of the gathering comes into focus. Neighbours from every cottage, distant kin you barely remember, a pair of old men already arguing over whose bread is better. At the long table set beneath the chestnut trees, the air is thick with anticipation. Someone's brought out embroidered cloths for the benches, and every place is marked with a sprig of green. "So there'll be peace," says an aunt, pressing one into your palm. You tuck it behind your ear and sit, the seat creaking beneath you, the smell of fresh grass and old wood mixing in the sun. It's not just family here. The village baker wipes his floury hands on his apron as he squeezes onto a bench. The priest hovers nearby, eyes sharp for any hint of mischief. Even the miller, who rarely shows his face except at funerals, has taken a seat, his wife bustling with a basket of apples and a wary eye on her youngest son. Each person brings a history, shared, disputed, half-remembered, and for a little while, everyone pretends they're only here for joy. But you know better. Every glance is measured, every greeting a negotiation. A bride's family eyes the groom's party with suspicion, checking who brought gifts and who came empty-handed. The old feud between two grandfathers flares in whispered jabs, only to be smoothed over by their wives' practiced smiles. A cousin asks loudly about the size of the dowry, earning a nudge and a glare. There's an edge under the surface, a businesslike hum beneath the laughter. Mainstream fact: in medieval Europe, marriage was rarely just about romance. For many, it was the ultimate family alliance. Land, livestock, and reputation, bound up in the simple act of two people standing side by side. Families brokered deals months, sometimes years, in advance. Contracts were written, hands shaken, oaths made before witnesses. Love was a luxury. What mattered most was the promise of survival and prosperity. You see it play out in every detail. The placement at the table, who sits closest to the parents, who further down, who at the very end, conveniently near the washhouse and the muddiest part of the yard. Children are kept in sight but just out of earshot, sent to play with hoops or chase chickens, while adults talk in low tones about debts, harvests, and old promises. There is a language here, one you've learned without ever being formally taught. A nod from the uncle means, "Watch your tongue." A raised eyebrow from the bride's mother warns you not to bring up the lost sheep of last spring. Conversation flickers around the table, a careful dance. The weather, the health of the livestock, the prospects for next year's grain. Sometimes, if the families are bold or desperate, there are jokes about the in-laws, half true, half dagger, always softened by laughter that's just a little too loud. The feast is not just a meal, but a stage. Loaves of bread passed down the table are symbols as much as sustenance. The first slice, given to the oldest guest, means respect for tradition. The heel, shared with the youngest, is a silent wish for new beginnings. Trays of honey cakes and dried fruit go round and round, each sweet bite a reminder that joy and bitterness often travel together. As you eat, you notice the fathers exchanging glances, a silent tally of obligations, a checking of mental ledgers. The bride's father, face stern but eyes watery, keeps one hand on a carved box at his side. Inside, you know, are the tokens of the marriage contract, the written promise, the first coin of the dowry, a ring or brooch that will seal the bargain. If all goes well, the box will be opened at the church. If not, well, the village will talk for years. A pair of aunts, their faces as lined as old tree bark, launch into a story about a wedding years ago, when the groom's mother lost her shoe and gained a cow. The table erupts in laughter, but beneath it is a warning. Every marriage is a negotiation, and every gift comes with a price. Another woman recalls the year of bad wheat and the hasty wedding that followed. The daughter sent off with little more than a loaf and a blessing, the mother's eyes red with loss. In the midst of it all, the children's laughter rings clear, chasing each other with ribbons and flower crowns, too young to know the weight their parents carry. For a moment, the grown-ups soften, and someone begins a song. Old words about harvest and hope, about spring's return and the power of promise. The bride, sitting near the end of the table, smiles at the melody. her nerves soothed by the music that's comforted generations. But the song ends, and the business resumes. A cousin sidles up to the groom asking about his prospects. "How many acres will you have? Will you take on the mill, or follow your uncle to the city?" The groom, cheeks flushed, answers carefully, glancing at his father for approval. The bride's family listens in, calculating, weighing. Every answer matters. Every laugh is remembered. In quieter corners, two women slip away from the crowd to discuss the dowry. The numbers are whispered. Hands wave for emphasis. A small purse changes hands with a nod. Nothing is signed yet, but the weight of the coins is felt in every heartbeat. Mainstream fact: dowries were serious business, sometimes negotiated for months. They could include land, livestock, tools, and household goods. For wealthier families, it might be a chest of silver or a finely woven cloak. For others, it was a cow, a pig, or even just the promise of future work. The dowry protected the bride, helped the new household, and offered security should things go wrong. You noticed the bride's mother smoothing her daughter's dress, murmuring blessings and advice. "Keep your patience. Don't let them see your fear. Remember what we've taught you." The bride nods, but her eyes drift to the lane, where the church bells begin to ring, and the time for talk is almost over. There's a moment when the tables go quiet, when every face turns toward the church. The priest stands by the door, a bright splash of red against the grey stone, and calls for the families to gather. The parents rise first, ushering children and aunts, the box with the tokens clutched tight. Everyone lines up in a jostling, hopeful procession, the weight of the day pressing on every shoulder. As you walk to the church, you feel the energy shift. A solemnity descends, nerves threading through every conversation. The business of marriage is never just business. Even those who insist it's only a deal can't help but hope for something gentler. Love, laughter, a lucky turn of fate. You sense it in the way the families cling together, in the silent squeeze of a mother's hand, in the way an old friend brushes a tear from her cheek. By the time you reach the churchyard, the crowd is buzzing with anticipation. The bride and groom are ushered inside, families gathering close, the last rays of sun catching on veils and buttons, on rings and hopeful eyes. For a moment, everything feels suspended, caught between hope and calculation, between old wounds and new beginnings. It is in this space, at the threshold of the church and the promise of the future, that you see the true heart of medieval marriage. Love and business, dreams and deals, all tangled together like the roots of the oldest tree in the village. You step inside, feeling the weight and wonder of it all. By the time you step through the low stone arch into the nave, the air inside the church feels charged, still, but trembling with the expectation of families, neighbours, and the unseen weight of every story that's come before. The candles flicker in their sconces. The scent of wax, lilies, and old prayer books blends with the tang of wool and fresh bread still clinging to wedding guests. In that moment, you're aware of the old women in the back pews, watching with sharp eyes, and the restless boys swinging their feet in the shadows. Everyone has come, because in a small medieval village, a wedding is public business. You take your seat near the front where the matchmaker hovers like a queen bee, her black dress crisp, her chin high. Everyone knows her. Half the couples in the village owe their marriage to her shrewd whispers and sharp memory for fortunes, scandals, and secret longings. She is the keeper of debts, the broker of peace, the one who knows exactly how many sheep your aunt's cousin's neighbour owns. Her eyes sweep the church, missing nothing. Not the nervous tremor of the bride's hands, not the father's sideways glance, not the quick, soft smile the groom tries and fails to hide. Mainstream fact: medieval marriages, especially among those with any property or social standing, were seldom left to chance. Families relied on matchmakers or go-betweens, people who could negotiate with skill, charm, and the ability to keep secrets. Even peasants, who might marry for affection as often as for alliance, understood the power of a well-chosen spouse to mend an old feud, secure a field, or lift a family's fortunes. You hear the low hum of discussion at the back. Did you hear what she demanded for her niece? A fat goose and 2 acres just to start. Another whispers, not really trying to keep her voice down. The matchmaker smiles slightly, enjoying her moment. This is her stage as much as the priest's. The bride's father stands a little apart, fingering the edge of the contract box, lips pressed tight. On the other side, the groom's mother counts her rosary, eyes darting from son to priest to the matchmaker. Even the children know something big is about to happen. They hush themselves, as if afraid the whole thing might vanish if they break the spell. Negotiations didn't end with the setting of the wedding day. Oh, no. Often, they came right up to the church door. You remember tales told by the fireside, a wedding held up for hours because a single sheep was judged too thin, or because the bride's uncle refused to sign away his corner of the family orchard. In other cases, the bargaining was less about goods and more about promises, future service, alliances sealed with a handshake and a cup of cider, or forgiveness for an old slight. The matchmaker, for all her confidence, still needs things to go smoothly. She's invested her reputation, her standing, her ability to wring a favour from both sides. Her role is both mercenary and maternal. She wants the best deal, but she also wants these two to last, if only so she can point to them at the next feast and say, "See? My handiwork?" She moves between families, voice low and urgent. There's a last-minute dispute. Word has it a promised milk cow has come up lame. The bride's aunt, cheeks flushed, insists another can be found. The groom's uncle, not to be bested, offers to sweeten the deal with a bolt of blue linen from his wife's dowry trunk. The crowd watches, half amused, half tense, as the matchmaker delivers verdicts and soothes egos. You remember Marta's story. Never trust a match that's sealed with just a kiss. There needs to be bread, or better still, a little silver. In the village, people still debate whether the best marriages start in the fields or at the bargaining table. Some old men swear a good dowry is the best recipe for happiness. Others insist nothing lasts unless there's at least a spark between the couple. But most agree, a matchmaker's bargain, sealed by all parties, is the safest way forward. Finally, the haggling subsides. The matchmaker straightens, delivers the news, a fresh goat, the blue linen, and a promise to help bring in the harvest. Both families nod, some with more grace than others. The contract box is opened, the priest's voice rises, and everyone leans in as the final terms are read aloud. It's official. Now, there's no turning back. As the bride and groom stand before the altar, you can't help but sense the relief. Nerves are still there, but so is a quiet acceptance. The feeling that a great machinery has just clicked into place. For a moment, you see the couple not just as pawns in a family game, but as two people about to cross the threshold together, whatever their reasons, whatever their hearts. You look around the church. The old women are nodding, satisfied. The matchmaker allows herself a tiny smile. The rest of the guests exhale as if they too have signed on the dotted line. The moment is fragile but real. You notice the way the groom glances at the bride, quick, uncertain, but not unkind. She meets his gaze for a heartbeat, then looks away, face unreadable. Business or love, maybe both. In this world, you learn to make peace with ambiguity. The priest begins the ceremony, but the matchmaker's bargain lingers in the air like a hidden thread, tying every guest, every family, every hope together. For now, at least, the deal is done. The old stone church feels heavy with more than incense and candle wax. It holds the weight of all the promises ever made inside its walls. As you watch the bride and groom step forward, hands trembling just a little, you realize they're about to perform a dance as ancient as the crumbling saints above the altar. The marriage contract, a binding of hearts and fortunes in equal measure. It's easy, in your modern mind, to imagine that a wedding is about love. Vows whispered from the heart, shy glances, the hope that someone sees you for who you truly are. And sometimes, yes, that magic is here. But in the medieval world, the script is bigger, more public. There are scrolls as important as kisses, words as binding as any touch. Before the law, before God, and, perhaps most terrifyingly, before all your neighbours, you will agree to things that reach far beyond your own heart. The priest, his voice solemn and echoing, unrolls a parchment, thick, yellowed, crammed with careful lines of ink. Names are read aloud, not just the bride and groom, but parents, godparents, witnesses. The matchmaker hovers nearby, ready to correct a detail or nudge a nervous father. The church clerk stands at the ready, feathered pen in hand to record the moment for the village ledger. Sometimes, a Lord Steward sits in the back pew making note of how the new union will affect rents or tithes. In many parts of medieval Europe, marriage was first and foremost a legal contract. The church sanctified it, but so did the courts. Marriages might be arranged with little input from the couple themselves, the important thing being that both families and their fortunes were protected. Sometimes the love match was an accident of luck, a bonus that grew quietly in the years after the vows. Today, the contract lists dowry gifts, obligations, even penalties for breaking the bond. If the bride dies childless, the land might revert to her father's family. If the groom fails to provide for her, a set amount of money or goods must be paid out. These details are not just legalese, they are insurance, lifeboats for an unpredictable world. You catch the groom's eye. He looks determined, maybe a little dazed. Is he thinking of love, or of the acres he stands to gain? The bride's face is still, but her hands twist the hem of her sleeve, knuckles white. Is she imagining a future of laughter and children, or simply hoping her new family will treat her kindly? In this moment, both are true. The priest asks the ancient questions. Do you come here freely? Do you accept the terms? Each reply is rehearsed but real. A hush falls as the pen is dipped in ink and the contracts are signed. By fathers, by mothers, sometimes even by the nervous couple themselves if they can read their own names. The matchmaker, satisfied, offers a quiet prayer beneath her breath. And then something shifts. The priest sets the scroll aside and it is time for the vows. Here, even the most practical souls are tempted by hope. The words are old but full of longing, to have and to hold, for better, for worse. You see the bride's lips tremble as she repeats them, voice growing steadier with every syllable. The groom's tone is sure, a little gruff, but you catch a smile flickering behind his bravado. There is no ring, not always. Not every family can afford such things. Sometimes a coin is pressed into the bride's hand or a ribbon tied around her wrist. The village will remember though, and the story will grow in the retelling. Every marriage is a myth in the making, its facts embroidered with each new telling. The crowd shifts as the vows end. Relief, joy, maybe a touch of envy in the eyes of those not yet matched. The parents exhale, the matchmaker relaxes her shoulders, and the priest, sensing the mood, blesses the couple with a broad smile. But even in this moment, business is never far from anyone's mind. Quiet bets are whispered about the first child's name, the size of the next harvest, the odds that the groom's younger brother will be next to marry. Still, as the couple walks back down the aisle, hands linked, there's something genuine in their laughter. Maybe a flicker of love, kindled by the promise that, against the odds, two lives can become one. You follow them outside, the sun suddenly bright on the church steps. The crowd spills out, voices rising, children dashing to catch petals thrown into the air. For a moment, the contracts and scrolls are forgotten, replaced by the music of celebration. But you know, as everyone does, that the heart and the contract will forever walk hand in hand in this new life. You slip through a narrow doorway away from the crowd and the light, and find yourself in the hush of the bride's world. The stones are cool beneath your feet, the rushes softer here, laid fresh for her trembling steps. Someone, her younger sister maybe, or a shy cousin, pulls the heavy door nearly shut, and for a heartbeat, the sounds of celebration outside fade to nothing. The bride sits before a cloudy mirror, hands folded tightly in her lap. the faintest shimmer of sweat at her brow despite the morning chill. For all the spectacle of marriage, the contracts, the feasts, the jests and blessings, there is always a part of the bride that is unseen. She is the focus yet invisible, the painted icon at the centre of a tapestry everyone admires but nobody truly touches. Even her closest friends see only flashes, a nervous smile, a quick squeeze of the hand, the way she lifts her chin when the room gets too loud. In this moment, you are with her in that private place, a watcher on the edge of her breath. Someone fusses with the veil, smoothing it over shining hair that has been brushed 100 strokes for luck. It's a relic from her grandmother's wedding, the silk worn thin in places but still gleaming where the light finds it. She runs her finger along the edge and wonders quietly if her grandmother was afraid, if her mother's hands shook like this, if her own will. The women around her murmur encouragement, reciting old words, some blessing, some joke meant to break the tension. "Don't trip or you'll set the chickens off," one teases, and the bride almost laughs. Inside, though, her thoughts spin like thread on a spindle, fast and fine and nearly invisible. She catalogues every hope and fear, every rumour she's heard about what marriage brings. Some nights, she lay awake listening to her parents talk. Soft voices through the wall, making bargains she only half understood. She remembers her mother's sigh, her father's cough, the shuffle of papers, the rustle of coins. She wonders now if it was all for her happiness, or if happiness is just something people find after the deals are done. She stands, turns before the glass. For a moment she almost does not recognise herself. The careful braids, the borrowed pearls, the flush on her cheeks. She has been trained for this moment since childhood. How to curtsy, how to smile, how to pour wine without spilling a drop. Yet nothing prepared her for the hollow at the pit of her stomach, the way her voice nearly catches when she tries to imagine her future. It's not that she is unhappy, at least not yet. It's more that the world feels too big for her skin, as if she's walking out onto a stage without knowing her lines. She touches the little pendant at her throat, a keepsake from her godmother, and remembers all the secret lessons shared late at night. Always keep a little for yourself, even if it's just a single memory, a secret tucked under your tongue. She promised she would. A younger cousin bursts in, eyes bright, cheeks smeared with jam from the kitchen. The bride kneels, smoothing the child's hair, and listens as she whispers about her plans for the day. How she will catch the bride's bouquet and marry a prince. How she will eat 3 honey cakes and never wash her hands again. The bride laughs, real and warm, and something in her chest untangles just a little. Childhood is not far behind her, and the world is not so frightening when seen through a child's eyes. As she rises, the others draw nearer, mothers, aunts, friends from the village who bring small gifts or advice. Each woman, in her own way, tries to pass on a bit of wisdom, as if love or luck can be shared like bread at a table. Some stories are gentle, of husbands who grow kinder with time, of kitchens filled with laughter and the scent of warm bread. Others are warnings, half veiled in humour. "Keep a lock on your larder and an eye on your purse," says one, and the others cackle, glancing over their shoulders as if secrets might have ears. She listens, grateful for the noise, the distraction, but she stores every word. She is learning even now that marriage is a kind of puzzle. Pieces of advice from a dozen voices, half of them contradictory, none of them complete. She wonders which lessons will serve her best. Obedience or cleverness, patience or pride, the courage to speak or the wisdom to remain silent. One friend, braver than the rest, squeezes her hand and whispers, "Love him if you can, but don't lose yourself." The bride nods, promising herself that she will try. There are rituals for everything, layers of meaning in every gesture. They dust her shoes with flour to keep away evil spirits, pin rosemary into her sleeve for remembrance, sprinkle her hem with salt to guard against sorrow. Each charm is a comfort, a wish, a way to push back against all that is unknown. Soon the men of the family come to fetch her. They stand awkwardly in the doorway, shuffling their feet, eyes averted. Her father reaches for her hand, and for a moment his thumb presses hard against her knuckles, a secret goodbye in a world where words cannot always be trusted. She holds his gaze and tries to show her gratitude, her fear, her fierce hope that he has chosen well. He cannot say he loves her, not here, not now, but she hears it anyway in the way he smooths her hair, the way his voice catches as he says, "You look just like your mother." The walk to the church is brief, but every step is weighted. The women murmur prayers, the children scatter petals, the men walk ahead to clear the path. The bride keeps her head high, counting her breaths, letting the rhythm calm her. She's no longer a child, not quite a wife. She is suspended between worlds, between names, between futures. At the church door, she hesitates. The matchmaker is there, smiling, nodding, fussing with her veil. "This is it, darling. The rest is just life." The bride nods, not trusting herself to speak, and steps over the threshold. Inside, the church is full. Every face she has ever known seems to be watching. She sees her mother's tears, her brother's nervous grin, her grandmother's proud, steady gaze. For a moment she is terrified that she will fail them, that she will falter, but then she sees the groom, standing there, as nervous and hopeful as she is. Their eyes meet, and in that glance is the smallest spark of recognition, of possibility. The ceremony is a blur. Words recited, vows exchanged, hands joined. She feels the pressure of the groom's fingers, the tremor in his touch, the heat of so many eyes. There is comfort in the ritual, in the familiar rhythm of ancient words. She repeats what she must, lets herself be guided through each gesture, and when it is over she exhales, a long, shuddering breath she didn't know she was holding. Afterward the crowd sweeps them out of the church, laughter and shouts rising in the bright air. The bride is pulled this way and that, kissed, hugged, blessed, teased. She's grateful for the attention, for the chance to hide her confusion in the flurry of noise. As the feast begins, she finds a quiet moment at the edge of the yard, under a tree where the light is soft and the air smells of summer. Here, she lets her mask slip for just a moment. She wonders what kind of wife she will be, what kind of life she will build. She touches the rosemary in her sleeve, breathes in its scent and tries to imagine a future shaped by both duty and desire. The groom finds her there, uncertain, shy. He asks if she is happy, if there is anything she needs. She hesitates, then says, "Time." He nods, understanding more than she expects, and for a moment they stand together in silence, not quite strangers, not yet partners, but something quietly beginning. Later, as the sun sets and the music swells, the bride lets herself dance. She spins in circles with her friends, laughs at the clumsy steps of her cousins, and for a while forgets her fears. She remembers the lessons of her childhood, to find joy where she can, to hold tight to small moments of freedom. As the night deepens, the guests grow merry, the stories grow bolder. The bride listens, learns, tucks away every secret for the days ahead. She knows her life will be measured by how well she adapts, how gracefully she balances expectation and self. At last, the world grows quiet. The bride sits alone, watching the moon rise over the rooftops. She is tired, but not defeated. She's afraid, but not undone. She whispers a promise to herself, a vow that is hers alone, to be kind when she can, to be brave when she must, and to never, ever give away the last piece of her heart. In the darkness, the future feels both vast and near. The bride closes her eyes, lets herself rest, and dreams of a world where love and business are not enemies, but partners in a long, complicated dance. You find yourself behind the crowded tables, where the laughter is rowdier and the ale flows freely. a little removed from the swirl of veils and ribbons and careful aunts. Here, in a lean-to shed set up as a makeshift groom's corner, the men in the groom's party are busy swapping boasts, bets and secrets. It smells of sweat, leather and roasted meat, sharp with a tang of nerves hiding under bravado. The groom sits at the centre, not quite the king of this moment, more like a young knight at his own trial. His tunic is stiff, new, the unfamiliar embroidery itching at his throat. He laughs at the jokes, nods at advice, but now and then his gaze drifts out the open door to the blur of sunlight, the flutter of the bride's ribboned dress somewhere among the crowd. He is expected to be eager, to be bold, to be ready for the responsibilities already crowding his future, but inside you sense something quieter, less easily named. Everyone assumes they know what a groom wants on his wedding day. A healthy wife, a strong harvest, a son before the year's out, shouts one uncle, earning laughter and a cuff on the ear from his own wife. A docile girl and a full cellar, another quips. The older men nudge, the younger ones jostle, and all around is the theatre of male certainty. Praise for the matchmaker's cunning, quiet boasts about dowries, ribald hints about the night to come. But under this, the groom's own hopes move like minnows beneath a still pond. He listens to their teasing, but his mind wanders. You can almost feel his heart thumping behind the borrowed confidence. There is pride, of course there is. A new wife means new status, a bigger place at the table, a share of his father's field, perhaps a chance to become the man his family expects. But the pride is laced with worry. Will he be good enough? Will she laugh at his jokes or shrink from his touch? Will she forgive the old wound on his hand, the stories he's never told? You remember how last night he stood alone in the dark, tossing pebbles against the kitchen wall, trying to summon the right words for today. He thought about the fields he would have to manage, the debts he would inherit, the unpredictable nature of family and weather and life, and beneath it all a smaller hope. Maybe she will smile at him, maybe she will listen, maybe they will find a way to make a friendship out of all these formalities. No one asks what the groom wants, not really. His wishes are assumed, his dreams written by someone else's hand. He's told what he must provide, how he must behave, how he must guard the family honour. He carries old advice like stones in his pocket. Don't let her see you weak. Keep your word even if it chokes you. A wife is like a good plough, useful if you keep her sharp. Yet these words settle uneasily, out of date and out of place in his chest. In the noise of the celebration, the groom slips away for a moment, finding himself at the edge of the green, away from the tables and music. The air here is softer, carrying the scent of crushed grass, a hint of wood smoke, the faint perfume of the bridal flowers. He closes his eyes, breathes deep, and lets the clamour recede. Alone, he is just himself, neither bargain nor boast, but a young man trying to find his footing on the threshold of the unknown. You watch him pace the path, kicking at pebbles, practicing what he might say to his bride later. Words that are not part of the formal script. Are you afraid? What do you like to eat for breakfast? Do you ever wish you could run away? He wonders if he dares say them. He wonders if she would understand. He wonders even if she feels the same, a little lost, a little stubborn, determined to build something real from this arrangement. A distant cousin finds him, claps him on the back and drags him back to the party. The laughter rises as he returns, and the older men pour him a cup of cider, urging him to toast his good fortune. To the future, they cheer, and the groom lifts his cup, but his eyes linger on the horizon, where the sun dips low and the village begins to blur in gold and shadow. You notice that as the day wears on, the groom seeks out small moments of quiet, carrying dishes to the kitchen, helping a child tie his shoe, standing with his father at the edge of the barn as the cattle are brought in for the night. He asks about the cows, about the state of the fences, about what comes next. His father answers practical and plain, but now and then he claps his son on the shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. When the wedding feast is in full swing, the groom returns to the heart of the celebration. He moves from table to table, accepting congratulations, sharing jokes, pretending to be at ease. Inside, he's counting how many times he's met his new in-laws, how many debts have just shifted onto his shoulders, how many people are watching for his first misstep. He finds his bride in the crowd, surrounded by her friends and cousins. Their eyes meet, and for a heartbeat, the noise falls away. She smiles, tentative, and he smiles back, uncertain but genuine. They stand together in the centre of the village, the world swirling around them, and exchange a few quiet words. "What do you want?" she asks softly, surprising him. He hesitates, then answers honestly. "Time and kindness, maybe a little luck." She nods, and for a moment, the bargain of marriage feels less like a cage and more like a door opening. As dusk falls and lanterns are lit, the older women begin a circle dance, calling for the newlyweds to join. The groom lets himself be pulled into the ring, laughing awkwardly as the steps grow faster, as the song grows wilder. He's clumsy at first, but the bride squeezes his hand, and soon they find a rhythm that is their own. The crowd cheers, the musicians play louder, and for a little while, the future seems simple. Music, laughter, a warm hand in his, the promise of a new life unfolding. When the dance is done and the guests begin to drift away, the groom helps his new wife gather the gifts, baskets of bread and apples, bolts of cloth, jugs of cider. Together, they thank each guest, accepting blessings and jokes and more advice than anyone could ever use. Some of it is wise, some foolish, all of it given in love or pride or the hope that their words might shape the years to come. The night deepens and the last of the guests bid farewell. The bride and groom walk home in the cool darkness, their shadows long on the road. They talk in low voices about nothing and everything, the weather, the cows, the taste of the cake, the odd way that even the most familiar village feels different tonight. In the quiet of their new home, the groom helps his wife untie her hair, folds her veil carefully, sets aside the borrowed pearls for safekeeping. He is gentle, awkward, uncertain. He asks her what she wants, and she answers honestly. They agree in whispers to try, just try, to be honest, to be patient, to make room for laughter even on hard days. Before sleep, the groom stands at the window watching the moonlight wash the field silver. He makes a silent promise to protect, to listen, to be more than the sum of his father's advice. He knows there will be days when he fails, when he's angry, when the burdens feel too heavy. But tonight, at the threshold of this new beginning, he's allowed a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, love and business can grow together. You slip away, leaving the groom in his small circle of lamplight and dreams, the first night of his new life stretching out before him like the road beyond the village gate. The village sleeps fitfully the night before a wedding, but at first light bells begin their low, urgent call, tolling the hour, tugging at shutters and dreams, sending crows up from the churchyard yew. It's a sound that means more than time. It means fate. It means the families must assemble, no matter the weather or last night's headaches, no matter if your shoes are still wet or your best tunic is tight across the shoulders. Today, the bells belong to the two new names soon to be stitched together in the parish book and on the lips of every gossip from here to the next market town. You're up early, already washed, nerves humming beneath your skin as you step into the slow current of people heading to the church. Even the sky looks ceremonial, a line of pale gold on the horizon, clouds gathering in patterns as if trying to outdo the day's embroidery. Children tumble ahead, chasing one another with ribbons and small bouquets, while elders walk arm in arm, old injuries forgotten for an hour in the name of family. Dogs bark, hens scatter. The smith's son carries his father's old cloak to lay on the church steps for luck, a custom older than any sermon. The church sits at the heart of the village, squat and weathered, its stones grooved by centuries of wind and rain and the shuffle of hopeful feet. You walk past the graveyard, noting the crooked headstones, the violets planted at the foot of a great-uncle, whose own wedding was marked by thunder and a flock of crows. Both good omens, Marta once told you, if you're willing to see it that way. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of wax and wildflowers. Candles burn low in their holders, the brass polished until it catches the dawn. The priest moves from row to row, making final checks, straightening a hymn book, patting a nervous child on the head, pausing at the altar to murmur a private wish for patience. Today he is part clerk, part magician, part diplomat, expected to tie not just hands but fortunes and hopes and generations together in a single simple blessing. Villagers take their seats with more noise than reverence, but as the minutes pass, a hush grows. The mothers fidget with kerchiefs, the fathers clear their throats, young lovers squeeze each other's hands in the pews, imagining what their own wedding might be like. The music starts, a slow, uncertain melody on the church's battered organ, and everyone turns as the bride enters, pale but steady, her veil glowing in the half-light, her smile half hidden by nerves, and the old joke that if she stumbles, it means 3 daughters and a bountiful orchard. The bride's mother stands at her side, her face set in a strange mixture of pride, grief, and fierce relief. She smooths her daughter's sleeve, tucks in a loose curl, whispers something private. Maybe advice, maybe a warning, maybe a confession she's saved for this moment. Behind them, the bride's sisters and cousins fumble with baskets of rose petals, giggling and tripping over one another as the older women shush them with sharp looks and gentle hands. The groom stands at the front, back straight, jaw set, trying to appear calm. His friends nudge him, whispering half jokes about the night ahead, about the cold in the church, about which of them might be next. You can see him searching the faces for reassurance, for a sign that he's doing this right, that he's not just following orders but stepping into his own life. As the procession moves, the congregation rises in a wave of shuffling feet, and the air shifts, the bells fall silent. The priest begins his welcome, a voice that is both comfort and command, ancient words that tie the past to the present. His blessing is not just for the couple, but for the whole village, the land, the houses, the hopes and grudges and tired hands that built this world. A low, rolling murmur runs through the crowd as the families approach the altar. There is no place for secrets here. Even the smallest child senses the stakes. The priest calls for silence, and the first prayer rings out, asking for favour on the marriage, for fruitfulness, for peace in the home, for the laughter of children and the warmth of plenty. The words hang in the air, not just a hope, but an instruction. You must earn these blessings day by day, season by season. There is a ritual here, older than memory. The bride's father places a coin on the altar, the symbol of all the bargains struck behind closed doors. The groom's mother hands over a loaf of bread. So there will always be enough. The priest sprinkles holy water, and in the stillness the droplets catch the sunlight, tiny rainbows flickering over the bowed heads of the couple. The congregation joins in, each reciting the familiar lines, their voices rising and falling, a single living thing. You notice the exchange of looks, a cousin arching an eyebrow at the matchmaker, an old friend winking at the bride, a grandfather wiping his eyes with the edge of his sleeve. These are blessings too, the small gestures that fill the spaces where words cannot reach. The priest calls for the vows. The couple faces each other, hands joined, their fingers trembling just enough to betray the truth. No matter how much business has shaped this day, love is not absent. It lingers in the hesitance, in the hopeful glance, in the laughter that breaks through the formality, when the groom stumbles over a word and the bride quietly squeezes his hand. As the vows are spoken, the congregation leans forward, hungry for the moment when two become one, not just in the eyes of God or the court, but in the shared imagination of everyone who has witnessed, gossiped, worried, and prayed for this day. The blessing is not just a formality, it is a contract with the community, a promise that these two will do their best to keep the old wounds from opening, to build something new from the old stones. There are blessings from all sides, official, whispered, even superstitious. Marta slips a sprig of lavender into the bride's palm, muttering an old rhyme. A neighbour quietly brushes flour across the threshold so that happiness will rise. Children scatter their petals with extra care, and somewhere in the shadows the smith's son drops a charm made of twisted iron into the cracks between the flagstones, to ward off ill luck and nosy neighbours alike. After the vows, the priest pronounces the couple joined, and the bells ring out once more, wild and glorious, their sound sweeping out over fields and woods, letting everyone within earshot know that something new has begun. The crowd spills from the church, laughter rising, the children running ahead, a handful of dogs barking at the sky. The new couple leads the way, walking arm in arm down the path, villagers following behind, voices raised in song and well-wishing. There is relief, there is pride, there is the first flutter of the unknown. In the jostle and noise you catch the bride glancing at her husband, her smile shy and bright. The groom leans in, says something that makes her laugh, and for a moment the weight of the day is light as thistledown. The party continues into the churchyard, where tables have been set up beneath the spreading limbs of an ancient oak. Old stories say the tree was planted the year the church was built, that every wedding since has been celebrated in its shade. Children weave garlands of daisies and nettles to hang from the lower branches, and the bravest among them dare each other to touch the wishing stone, a mossy boulder said to grant good fortune to newlyweds who press their hands together on its sun-warmed surface. Food is passed from hand to hand, dark bread, smoked fish, bowls of beans and honeyed apples. The priest offers a last toast, his voice warm now, less formal, a reminder that for all the ritual, what matters most is kindness, patience, and the willingness to keep trying, even on days when blessings feel far away. As the afternoon deepens, the blessings become stories, tales of other weddings, of old loves lost and found, of luck won and squandered, of the village itself surviving storm and famine and the passage of time. You sit beside the bride's grandmother, who squeezes your hand and tells you, every marriage is a risk, every blessing is a seed. What you do with them, well, that's up to you, isn't it? The bells ring again at sunset, calling everyone back to the church for evening prayers. The couple kneels at the altar, surrounded by family and friends, their heads bowed together. In the fading light you see not just hope but determination, a promise that whatever business brought them here, whatever old scores or new bargains were struck, they will try to make something of their own, something that, with luck and effort, might even become love. As darkness falls and the bells grow silent, you walk home through the hush, the day's blessings echoing with each step. The air is cool, the stars bright, and somewhere in the distance a nightingale sings. A blessing perhaps for all those who hope and try and risk their hearts in the ancient dance of marriage. You're barely out of the churchyard before the clamour of the feast takes hold, sweeping everyone into its raucous current. For a moment you can almost believe the anxieties and bargains of the day are behind you. The bells have gone quiet, replaced by the thump of drums, the shriek of a fiddler testing his strings, and the wild, joyful cacophony of 100 voices all competing for the right to remember this day first and best. Long tables sag under platters of roasted meat, trenchers piled with spiced beans and onions, baskets brimming with round loaves. Every seat is claimed, relatives elbowing neighbours, the bride's youngest cousin squeezed between the old matchmaker and the village reeve, the smith's apprentice holding hands under the table with a baker's daughter. Children dart like sparrows, filching bites before the adults can notice, only to be swept up by the chorus of grown-ups raising the first toast. You find your place among the revellers, pressed between Marta, who has opinions on every course, and an uncle who insists on carving the meat himself, for luck, don't you know. As the platters come round, the talk grows loud and sharp, full of laughter and a little edge. For the first time all day, the business of the marriage slips into the background, replaced by something older and wilder: celebration, release, the stubborn refusal to let the weight of the future ruin the present. It's here, over bowls of cider and fat slices of pie, that the gossip truly begins. For weeks the villagers watch the courting, the bargaining, the fitful progress of the match. Now, with the deal done and the vows spoken, tongues loosen and secrets slip out with every swallow of drink. The aunts at the end of the table are first to begin. I always said he'd never settle for a city girl, no matter how many ribbons her father could buy. And just look at her shoes. Borrowed, you mark my words. I saw the very pair on her sister's feet last Martinmas. The laughter is affectionate, but not without a sting. Even joy here is edged with memory and warning. Children are sent to fetch platters and return with news. Who's dancing with whom? Who snuck away behind the barn? Who was caught pilfering the honey cakes? Every tidbit is fuel for the fire, every whisper a way to stake a claim in the story of the day. You learn more about your neighbours in an hour of feasting than in a year of passing them on the road. At the high table, the newlyweds are the unwilling stars of the show. Every glance, every blush, every awkward pause is noted and remarked upon. The bride, cheeks flushed, sips cautiously at her cider, while her mother-in-law leans in with advice that is more threat than comfort. The groom laughs a little too loudly, already trading stories with his new brothers, but his hand keeps finding the bride's under the table, a small anchor in the storm of attention. "Did you see how she looked at him during the vows?" whispers one old friend to another. "It was almost like she meant it." "Nonsense, she's just well taught. Her aunt drilled her for weeks, I'll wager." "Well, he didn't seem so steady either. Nearly dropped the ring." The speculation spirals, each theory building on the last, each guest eager to be the one who truly understands what happened behind the public smiles. You notice the children starting a new game beneath the tables, guessing what gifts the couple received and which will be returned or quietly regifted come winter. "The best is always from the matchmaker," one child says, his mouth sticky with honey. "No, my uncle says it's the bread from the miller's wife. That loaf keeps the rats away for a year." You marvel at how, even at this age, children understand the currency of gifts, the way every gesture is weighed, counted, and remembered. As the food disappears, the music rises. The fiddler finds his rhythm, joined by a flautist and a drummer on a battered pot. The first dance begins, a slow circle. The steps easy enough for everyone to join, the song older than anyone in the room. The bride and groom lead, awkward at first, but soon laughing as they are swept along by the cheering crowd. Old rivals end up hand in hand, widows dance with children, the priest claps along, beaming. Amid the swirl of dancing, a group of men slips away to the barn for a quieter drink. Here the talk is franker, debts and harvests, the chances of a mild winter, which neighbour will be next to marry. They swap stories of their own weddings, some triumphant, some still raw with regret. "Best advice I ever got," says one, pouring another round, "was to keep your mouth shut and your boots dry. You'll need both soon enough." Meanwhile, the women gather at the edge of the green, arms around each other, laughter bubbling like a spring. They share memories of other feasts, other brides, old heartaches that sting a little less with every retelling. There is pride in their voices, but also a kind of warning, a sense that the work of marriage is just beginning. "She'll be fine if she can keep her tongue," says one, "or if she can't, at least let her be clever about it." As the afternoon blurs into evening, the toasts grow more elaborate. Every uncle wants his moment, every aunt offers a rhyme or a riddle. To love, to luck, to children soon. May their roof never leak and their bread never mould. The couple smiles and laughs, but you can see the exhaustion behind their eyes. A long day, a long season, a long life stretching ahead. It's then that the stories start. The real ones, the ones that never make it into the contracts or the parish records. Marta leans in, voice low, telling of the year she wed a man she barely knew, how they built something lasting from awkward beginnings and a stubborn refusal to give up. It's never just business, she says, and it's never just love. You make it up as you go along, like patching a cloak that keeps snagging on the same old thorn. Across the table, an old man brags about wooing his wife with nothing but a song and a handful of wildflowers, only to have her out negotiate him for the best cow in the herd. She got the better deal, but I got the better woman, he laughs, and the table roars in agreement. You listen, soaking it all in, the boasts, the confessions, the grudges that surface and fade, the quiet pride in marriages that survived famine, plague, disappointment, and yet managed to find laughter and comfort at the end of the day. There's a kind of wisdom here, buried in the stories. Everyone starts out thinking their marriage is unique, but in the end, every union is its own combination of love, luck, compromise, and stubbornness. As dust settles, the children grow sleepy, collapsing in piles like puppies at their mother's feet. The fiddler plays softer, the dancers slow, the laughter mellows into song. Someone brings out a cake, a lumpy, lopsided thing, but the pride of the baker's table. The bride and groom share the first slice, feeding each other with awkward, delighted hands. It's messy, it's sweet, and for a moment all the day's worries melt away. Later, as the moon rises, the gossip shifts from present to future. Who will be the next to marry? Whose marriage will last? Who will produce an heir? And who will find themselves back at the matchmaker's door before next winter? The speculation is endless, a never-ending thread that ties the village together. You find yourself at the edge of the crowd, watching the new couple slip away into the shadows hand in hand. Their laughter drifts back to you, soft and genuine, unguarded for the first time all day. Whatever bargains brought them here, whatever gossip follows, tonight is theirs, a blank page. You linger by the fire, listening to the last of the stories. Marta joins you, tucking her arm through yours. "Remember this night," she says quietly. It goes fast and it comes back to you in pieces. One laugh, one promise, one spilled cup of cider. That's all marriage is in the end. The moments you hold on to and the stories you choose to tell. The fire burns low. The feast is over, but the gossip, like love, like business, never truly ends. It changes shape, passes from hand to hand, feeds the village through the lean months and the lonely nights. Tomorrow will bring new bargains, new quarrels, new dances, but tonight, you're part of something old and enduring. A story stitched together from 100 voices. You walk home beneath the stars, the music fading behind you, the taste of cider and honey lingering on your tongue. In the quiet, you realize the feast is more than food. It is memory, hope, and the stubborn belief that for all the business behind the match, love might still have the last laugh. The feast is winding down, but the evening is only just beginning. There's a strange electricity in the air, a current of anticipation that the village can't quite name. Something ancient, even sacred, about the threshold where day gives way to night, and strangers become partners in every sense of the word. Lanterns are lit, swinging from beams and trees and doorposts, spilling honeyed light over the green, pooling in the dusty corners of the barns and along the winding lane. The moon climbs, fat and golden, drawing silver edges on the scattered hay, and glinting in the wedding rings and spilled cider. The air smells of wood smoke, trampled grass, and the soft, heady perfume of bruised flowers. Some of the old women have begun to collect platters and tidy the chaos left by the feast, clucking to themselves as they scrape leftover beans into a pail for the pigs. Laughter still rings out in bursts, hushed, secretive now, as the crowd shrinks and the stars grow bold overhead. You find yourself watching the newlyweds, no longer just a bride and groom, but something new, fragile and yet immensely old. They stand a little apart, ringed by the last well-wishers, the bride's arm tucked through the crook of her husband's, her head tilted as she listens to the priest's parting blessing. He gives them a sprig of rosemary, for memory and courage, and a wink only they seem to understand. Then he slips away, as priests always do, leaving the sacred in the hands of those who must make it real. The final guests linger, reluctant to leave. There is a kind of hope in the air, a willingness to believe that tonight marks not only the start of a marriage, but the renewal of the whole village. One by one, lanterns flicker out in windows as families head home, arms around each other, sharing the last of the cider and the first of the gossip about what the marriage will bring. You walk with the couple as they leave the green, the sounds of the feast trailing behind them like the echo of a song. The lane is cool, shadows deepening. The newlyweds walk slow, savouring the quiet, pausing often to touch the rough bark of a tree, to breathe the scent of earth and smoke, to lean into each other for warmth and reassurance. For all the celebration and spectacle, this walk is the true beginning, a time when nerves and hope and the strange private business of two hearts meet without witnesses. You notice their steps fall into rhythm, unhurried and deliberate. They speak in low voices, asking and answering the simple questions that carry so much. Are you tired? Was it what you expected? Will you miss your mother? Do you want to go home by the field or the old gate? Each answer is an offering, a tiny act of trust. The moon glances down, making silver of their hair and shadows of their fears. At the cottage, the door stands open. Someone, perhaps a younger sibling or a friend, has swept the rushes and left a bundle of wildflowers on the hearth. The room is small, humble, but tonight it feels vast, a whole world waiting to be filled. The newlyweds pause at the threshold, neither quite willing to be the first to step inside. At last, the bride nudges the groom's arm and together they cross, hands still entwined, laughter spilling out behind them. You hover in the doorway for a moment, watching as they shed the day's finery. The bride unpins her veil and shakes out her hair. The groom loosens his collar and kicks off his boots. For the first time, they are simply themselves, not symbols, not bargains, but two people blinking in the lamplight, a little awkward, a little giddy, half afraid and half relieved. The cottage feels different tonight. Shadows climb the walls, the old beams creak in the night wind, and the fire in the hearth flickers low. The bride finds a piece of bread left from the feast, breaks it in half, and they eat in companionable silence. There's comfort in the ordinary, the taste of salt and flour, the warmth of shared cider, the slow unwinding of nerves. At first, conversation is shy, almost formal. Thank you for this, did you see that? What did you think of the feast, the music, the gifts? But soon it loosens. The bride dares a joke about the matchmakers dancing. The groom confesses he was afraid he'd spill the cider on his new tunic. They laugh, surprised at how easy it is, how quickly relief can tip into delight. They speak of the day, of old friends and new promises, of the chores waiting tomorrow and the dreams they never dared speak aloud. At some point the bride stands, pulls the heavy shutters closed and lights a second candle. The room glows golden, and the noise of the world recedes. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the eaves, but inside there is only warmth. They talk long into the night, not just of hopes and worries, but of favourite foods, of childhood adventures, of things lost and things never yet tried. For the first time, the business of marriage feels less like a contract and more like an invitation. Come closer, know me, let me know you. There is an intimacy in this night that goes beyond touch. It's the intimacy of shared fear and shared hope, of deciding together how the world will look in the morning. They sit on the edge of the bed, not quite touching, their knees brushing in the lamplight. For a long while they are content just to be, to let the silence stretch between them, to savour the strange, sweet newness of belonging. You notice the small details, how the bride sets aside a bit of cake for luck, how the groom tucks his boots neatly by the door, how their voices grow softer as the night deepens. There is no rush. Tonight is not for expectations or performance, but for finding a common ground, a way to begin with gentleness. Eventually the talk grows slower, words trailing into comfortable silence. They lie side by side, listening to the crackle of the fire, the distant call of an owl, the heartbeat of their own new beginning. Sleep comes gently, winding them together beneath the quilt, the day's burdens dissolving in the hush of night. In the hours that follow, dreams twist between them, a patchwork of hope and memory, of gardens yet to be planted and stories yet to be written. The village outside slumbers, the moon gliding over rooftops, the fields whispering with the promise of morning. In this quiet, the marriage grows roots, slow and deep, fed by trust and laughter, and the first fragile thread of love. The world shrinks to the cottage, to the warm tangle of arms and legs, to the promise of days and nights to come. In the darkness, fears lose their sharpness, and old worries give way to the slow, patient work of making a life together. When the sun finally rises, the cottage is golden with light. The newlyweds wake slowly, tangled in each other's warmth, blinking in the gentle day. The world outside calls. There are chores to be done, animals to feed, neighbours to greet. But for a moment they lie still, savouring the peace of their own small kingdom, the certainty that whatever bargains brought them together, it is theirs to shape now, day by day, night by night. They rise, dress, and step out into the morning hand in hand. The village is stirring, children laughing, dogs barking, smoke rising from kitchen chimneys. The wedding is already becoming a story, already slipping into legend, but for these two the real work is just beginning. As you watch them walk down the lane, you sense the village watching too, some with hope, some with envy, some with a quiet pride of having witnessed something ancient and new. There will be gossip, of course, and there will be judgment, but there will also be help when needed, advice given whether asked for or not, and 1,000 small gestures that make a community. In the days that follow, the couple finds their rhythm. They divide chores, argue gently about the best way to plant beans, share bread and secrets, and the occasional exasperated sigh. There are moments of frustration, when the cow kicks over the bucket, when the roof leaks, when old wounds flare up in a stray word or a forgotten promise. But there are also moments of grace, a shared joke, a hand held under the table, a quiet forgiveness before sleep. Nights bring their own learning. There is the slow discovery of what brings comfort and what sparks laughter, the negotiation of space and silence, the building of trust in the dark. The cottage becomes a home, not by magic, but by the accumulation of small kindnesses, by the steady, stubborn willingness to try again each morning. The village watches, and the story grows. The marriage is measured not by the size of the dowry or the grandeur of the feast, but by the way the couple walks together to mark it, by the laughter that spills from their window on winter nights, by the way their voices rise and fall in harmony as they work the field side by side. You see them months later sitting under the old oak sharing bread and cider at the end of a long day. They lean into each other, the world narrowed to the soft hush of evening. They are not the same as the pair who walked from the feast on their wedding night. They are changed, weathered by sun and wind, softened by laughter, strengthened by each small choice to begin again. And so the night that began with nervous laughter and tentative touch becomes the first line of a new story, one that will be told and retold, shaped and reshaped as the years roll on. It is never just love or just business, never just luck or hard work. It is all of these and more, the endless hopeful dance of two people trying, failing, forgiving, and beginning again. The moon rises and falls, the seasons turn, and the cottage stands, humble, sturdy, alive with memory. The village forgets the details of the feast, the gossip fades, but the marriage endures, rooted in the gentle, unremarkable miracle of two lives slowly, stubbornly, choosing each other night after night. dawn is not a gentle visitor. It slips into the cottage with sharp light and the bracing chill that seeps in beneath the door, prodding the new couple from their tangled warmth. For the first time, they rise not as bride and groom, but as partners, two people with work to do, responsibilities waiting, and a house already in need of a good sweep. You watch as they move through the small, familiar rituals that mark the beginning of a shared life. One starts the fire, the other fetches water, bread is sliced, butter spread, a single mug passed back and forth in the quiet. The village is waking too, cows lowing, roosters crowing, the shouts of children carrying across the fields. Neighbours pass by, some offering a wave or a ribald joke, others simply nodding as if nothing has changed. There is comfort in the ordinary, a sense that life, for all its celebrations and upheavals, always returns to its well-worn grooves. In those first days, the couple learns each other not in grand gestures, but in 1,000 small moments. How one prefers the eggs cooked, the way the other hums when lost in thought, the rhythm of feet on the ladder, the proper place for the broom. There is a gentle awkwardness to it, a fumbling toward comfort that is equal parts laughter and irritation. They make mistakes. The bread is burned, the goat gets loose, a pail of milk is spilled and tempers flare. He accuses her of hiding his boots. She snaps back about the drafty window he promised to fix. It is tempting sometimes to remember the feast and the blessing and wonder if the promises were meant for people cleverer, or kinder, or simply less tired. But every evening brings forgiveness. Sometimes it is spoken, a soft "I'm sorry" by the hearth, a hand on the shoulder, an extra slice of cake saved for the other. Sometimes it is silent, a blanket shared on a cold night, the gentle untangling of a snarl in the wool, the careful way one lets the other have the last word in a harmless quarrel. They begin to learn that marriage, for all its business, is a series of small negotiations, none written down, all the more vital for being unseen. The days settle into a pattern: chores at dawn, work in the fields, meals hurried or savoured according to the season. Some days the rain drives them indoors, where she teaches him to mend a torn shirt, or he shows her how to sharpen a knife. Laughter bubbles up in unexpected places, over a shared story, a muddy tumble in the yard, a failed attempt at baking that ends in a cloud of flour and a fit of giggles. The house grows warmer, richer with the smells of baking bread, of stews and herbs, of the slow accumulation of memory. Neighbours drop by, as neighbours always do. Some come with advice, thinly disguised as gossip. Don't let him think you can't handle a plough, or you'll be stuck in the kitchen forever, one matron winks. Keep your honey hidden, or the children will sniff it out, another warns. The couple listens, nods and smiles, then forgets half of it by sunset, keeping only the scraps that fit their own lives. Children are everywhere, nieces, nephews, cousins, bringing noise and chaos and the occasional scraped knee or broken cup. The couple learns to parent in fits and starts, discovering the patience needed to untangle a child's hair or soothe a tantrum, the pride that comes with a child's sleepy smile at the end of the day. These lessons are not written in any contract, but they bind the two together more tightly than any legal scroll. The couple's work is not all drudgery. There are moments of pride, the first harvest gathered together, the first loaf baked without help, the first row of vegetables sprouting in a garden carefully tended side by side. There are festivals and fairs, dances in the village green, evenings when the house is filled with friends and music, and the sense that for a little while the world is as it should be. But there are hard seasons too, times when the crops fail or illness sweeps through the village, when grief sits at the table and will not be moved. The business of marriage becomes a matter of survival, planning, saving, comforting, sharing what little is left. These are the times that test the bond, that reveal what was hidden beneath the smiles and promises of the wedding day. The couple learns to lean on each other. Sometimes the comfort is clumsy. a rough hand squeezing another in the dark, an awkward joke meant to chase away tears. Sometimes it is simply a willingness to sit together in silence, to wait out the worst of it side by side. They discover the deep, quiet power of being seen and held, not for what one can provide, but for who one is when the world goes dark. In the spring, the couple plants a tree together at the edge of their garden. It is a small thing, a sapling barely thicker than a thumb, but they tend it with care, watering, shielding it from the wind, tying ribbons to its branches for luck. They talk about the future as they work, about the children they hope for, the old age they imagine. They do not speak of love, not directly, but it is there in every gesture, every plan, every hope laid down like a seed in the earth. Seasons pass. The couple grows together and apart, and together again. There are quarrels that last an hour, and silences that last a day. There are days when one cannot bear the sight of the other, and nights when they cling so tightly you'd think they were afraid the world might end before morning. They learn to read each other's moods, the set of the jaw, the tilt of a head, the way a hand curls around a cup. They learn slowly that love is not always loud, not always easy, not always sweet. Sometimes it is simply the willingness to stay. The house fills with small treasures. A ribbon found in the grass, a shell from the river, a letter written in a shaky hand and tucked away for rainy days. There are scars too, a burn from the hearth, a chipped tooth, a story that hurts to tell. Each mark is a piece of their life together, a sign that they have survived, together, the 1,000 small trials of the everyday. The village sees their progress. Some are jealous, some approving, some indifferent. The couple becomes, over time, less the subject of gossip and more a fixture of the village, a pair to be reckoned with, relied upon, remembered when the next wedding comes around. Their story is woven into the tapestry of the place, another thread in the endless, stubborn fabric of communal life. At night, when the work is done and the house is quiet, the couple sits together by the fire. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they simply listen to the wind. There are nights of passion, and nights of exhaustion, and nights when the only thing that passes between them is a shared sigh. They do not need words, not always. Sometimes love is just the promise to stay until morning, to begin again with the dawn. The business of marriage is never truly done. There are always bargains to be struck. Who will fetch the water? Who will mend the fence? Who will say sorry first? There are moments of pettiness, of pride, of anger that flares and fades. But there are also moments of joy, a song sung together in the fields, a dance by the river, a smile caught across the table at the end of a long day. The couple does not know, cannot know, how their story will end. But they have learned that building a life together is not a single act, not a contract signed and sealed, but 1,000 choices made every day. It is hard work and sometimes thankless, but it's theirs. And in the quiet moments, in the laughter and the tears, they find something like happiness. The years ahead will not be easy. There will be losses, betrayals, moments when the old dreams fade and new ones are slow to take root. But the couple has built something sturdy, a partnership, a home, a place where, for all the world's uncertainties, they can face what comes together. And so, as the fire burns low and the night wraps the house in silence, the couple holds hands, just for a moment, just long enough. They are not bride and groom any longer. They are something else now, something harder and better and infinitely more real. They are partners. They are home. Seasons turn. The sharp newness of marriage settles into the slow rhythm of shared life, days stringing together like beads on a cord, each one similar, yet none quite the same. The first winter is a test. The cottage shrinks in the cold, the fire becomes their sun, and the world outside, fields, village, roads, is blurred by frost and the quiet crunch of snow underfoot. It's here, in the hush between chores, that the truest parts of marriage begin to show. At first, everything is delicate, each word and gesture as carefully weighed as the dowry once was. Will she mind if you sharpen your knife at the table? Does he really hate porridge, or is he just stubborn? You notice the way the silences grow longer, not awkward but full, the way shared looks can say more than words. Sometimes, laughter bursts out of nowhere, a joke half remembered, a story retold so many times that it's more myth than memory. But love is not guaranteed. Some mornings, the chill between two people lingers longer than the frost on the window. A careless word can sour a whole day. Resentment creeps in like damp, slow, invisible, but dangerous if left unchecked. The old stories never warned you about the slow bruising that comes from pride, from disappointment, from simply being seen too closely and too long. Yet, there are moments when love is undeniable. It shows itself in small mercies. A cup of tea left by the bedside, a coat mended quietly, a stubborn argument abandoned with a sigh and a kiss. Sometimes love is loud, a shout across the fields, laughter so strong it shakes the roof. Sometimes it's quieter, a hand reaching for another's in the dark, a whispered apology, a promise made and kept. You see it at the village dances, when the couple who barely spoke all week finds themselves caught by a favourite tune, suddenly grinning and light-footed as children. You see it in the way he saves her the last slice of honey cake, or she sits up with him when he's ill, feeding him broth and patience in equal measure. The best marriages, the villagers say, are patched and mended like old quilts, warmer for all their seams and stitches. But not all unions thrive. Some grow apart as the seasons change. Old wounds reopen, trust frays, affection cools. There are houses in the village where silence settles thick as dust, where neither partner can recall the last time laughter filled the air. In these homes, duty survives where love has not, and the routines of daily life are carried out with resignation rather than joy. Still, hope lingers, even here. Sometimes a quarrel softens into understanding. Sometimes forgiveness is found, slow and awkward, but real. Sometimes, when the night is coldest, two people who thought they had lost each other find comfort in a shared memory, a silly joke, a sudden, inexplicable tenderness. Villagers watch and judge, of course. They whisper about the couple who never fights and wonder if that's truly love or just fear. They gossip about the pair who bickers like crows but always sits together at church. Every marriage is its own riddle, its own impossible math. Some say love is luck, others say it's work, but most agree it is never just one or the other. In time, the couple learns to measure their life together, not by grand declarations or public gestures, but by the quiet, steadfast accumulation of days. They share burdens, planting and harvest, sickness and health, sorrow and celebration. They find new rhythms, create new traditions, learn when to speak and when to let silence do its work. Sometimes, love returns where it was thought lost. A husband rediscovers the lilt in his wife's voice when she sings at the well. A wife catches her husband's eye across a crowded room and feels a flutter she thought gone forever. These are the miracles of the everyday. The slow, stubborn growth of affection. The quiet return of joy. And sometimes marriages end. A widow sits by the fire remembering the young man she once loved, now gone to earth and memory. A widower visits the tree he and his wife planted, his hands gentle on the rough bark, his heart aching with gratitude and regret. Even in these endings there is a kind of love, a recognition of what was shared, of what endures beyond loss. The business of marriage, the villagers say, is never finished. It is always beginning, always ending, always being remade in the space between two people. Whether love grows or fades, it leaves its mark. On the house, on the heart, on the stories that are told long after the couple is gone. You walk through the village in the evening, windows glowing with lamplight, laughter drifting on the air. In some houses there is music, in others quiet. In every home, a story is unfolding, a story of a love that grows or fades or changes shape with the turning of the year. And so, as the night settles and the world grows still, you remember, every marriage is a gamble, every heart a wager. But in the slow, patient work of living together, through laughter and quarrel, through feast and famine, love has its chance to grow. Morning breaks across the thatched roofs, gold slipping between the beams, catching on the dust that floats in lazy spinning spirals above the kitchen table. The couple is already at work. She kneads bread, humming an old tune, her hands white with flour. He sharpens a sickle, his gaze distant, thinking about the field and the weather and the unpredictable nature of the world. The house is filled with the soft noises of partnership, a cupboard opening, boots scraping the floor, the faint hiss of water boiling for tea. Marriage, it turns out, is a business as much as a bond. The romance of the wedding fades into the steady give and take of shared labour, the daily negotiations about work and money and the infinite little bargains that make up a life. They do not talk about love every day, but about cabbage and coin, eggs and errands, how best to patch a roof or trade a chicken for a length of blue ribbon at market. It's in the kitchen, over mugs of weak beer, that the real deals are struck. Who will walk to the mill with the barley? Who will barter for salt and candles? Who will take in the neighbour's child when his mother is sick? And who will haggle with the reeve over the latest tithe? These are not dramatic questions. They are the slow pulse of survival, and they bind the couple together more closely than any love song. You notice how they fall into rhythm, not always smoothly, but with a certain practiced grace. When she sighs, he knows she is thinking of the hens. When he rubs his forehead, she guesses the worries about the roof. They develop silent signals, a tap of the spoon, a glance at the window, a quick tug at an apron string, that mean everything from "help me now" to "don't say that in front of the children." It's not just within the walls of their home that the business of marriage thrives. At market they are a team, one to haggle, one to charm, one to carry goods, one to keep a sharp eye on the purse. Other couples do it differently, but everyone knows the most successful households are partnerships, the kind where each knows the other's strengths and weaknesses as intimately as their own. They keep accounts, not only of money but of favours owed and given, of promises made and kept, of disappointments forgiven and old grudges set aside. The ledger is never written down, but it is felt in the ease with which they move around each other, the quick, silent decisions that save a quarrel or win a better price for a bushel of beans. At times, they fight. Over money mostly, or whose family to visit at Candlemas, or whether the kitchen garden would do better if it were moved to the other side of the yard. The quarrels are sharp, sometimes lasting a day or more, but they are always mended in the end, sometimes with words, sometimes with laughter, sometimes with the silent gift of a perfect apple set at one's place at table. They are not alone. Every house in the village is a small business, every couple a partnership forged in necessity and tested by the endless demands of a life. The most prosperous families are those who have learned to make their peace with compromise, to bend without breaking, to keep accounts with kindness and patience rather than resentment. There are lean years, when the crops fail or illness spreads, and the couple must rely on wits and hard work to keep food on the table and the children in shoes. There are years of plenty too, when the harvest is good, and the storeroom fills with sacks of grain and jars of honey. In both, the business of marriage persists, a daily commitment, a steady hand on the tiller. The neighbours notice. They comment on how smoothly things run, how the couple never seems to want for bread or laughter. "It's not magic," says Marta. "It's work. It's knowing when to bite your tongue and when to stand your ground." Other couples learn by watching, picking up the tricks that work and avoiding the pitfalls that nearly sunk someone else's ship. Children grow, chores multiply, time speeds up. The couple looks back sometimes at the early days, at the uncertainty and the endless negotiation, at the surprise of discovering just how much of marriage is business. They laugh, remembering old quarrels and harder seasons, the lessons learned at market and hearth. There are moments when the partnership is tested, a lost wager at the tavern, a poor decision about seed or stock, a careless word spoken in anger. These are the real threats, not the disasters that come from outside, but the tiny cracks that can grow if left untended. They learn slowly to patch and mend, to talk and forgive, to keep the business running even when the heart is tired. But there is joy in it too. The pride of a well-run home, the satisfaction of a clever bargain, the quiet comfort of knowing that for all the world's chaos, there is someone else in your corner. The romance may have faded, but something sturdier has taken its place. A deep trust, a respect built from years of working and worrying and winning, side by side. In the evenings, after the day's work is done, they sit together by the fire, sharing bread and stories, counting up the small victories and defeats. The house is full of laughter, of memory, of the slow, stubborn accumulation of years. They may not say "I love you" every day, but in the way they care for each other, in the business of keeping the family safe and the roof dry, it is always there. The village changes, seasons turn, new couples take their place. The old business partners look on, offering advice when asked, a warning or a blessing when needed. Their partnership is both example and mystery, admired and envied, and sometimes gently mocked by those who do not yet know how hard won the best marriages are. As the night draws in and the fire burns low, the couple sits together, tired but content. They are not the lovers of the songs, perhaps, but they are something better. Companions, equals, business partners in disguise, holding together a small world that would fall apart without their quiet daily work. There's a hush that settles over the village after supper, a gentle closing of shutters and lowering of voices. Yet beyond the lamplight and the lines drawn in the dust by parents and priests, the world is never quite as orderly as the marriage contracts and ledgers suggest. You feel it in the sly glances exchanged beneath the eaves, in the laughter that lingers a beat too long as the moon climbs. Here, on the shadowy edge of the lawful world, love tugs quietly at the margins, and the business of marriage can never quite keep it at bay. The village lanes at dusk become their own kind of theatre. Old lovers, married now to others, pass each other on the road to the well, offering nothing more than a nod, a half smile, but feeling the electricity all the same. A shepherd's daughter slips out after prayers to leave a flower on the stonemason's doorstep. No note, only a sprig of blue cornflower, but he knows exactly who sent it. A widow lingers at the edge of the field where a farmhand sharpens his scythe, neither speaking, both acutely aware of every movement. These are not the stories told at the feasts or recorded in the parish books. They survive instead in whispers, in the jokes told too late at night, in the half-remembered verses sung by the women as they card wool or knead bread. There are more ways to love than to sow a field, Marta says, eyes glinting, and the younger girls giggle, blushing, not quite certain whether to believe her. The new couple senses these currents, sometimes even before they admit it to themselves. Their own marriage, newly minted and already settling into habit, is not immune to the restlessness that comes from living in such close quarters, day in and day out. There are days when affection comes easy, as soft as morning sun on the floor. There are days when it is hard, when tempers snap, when boredom grows, when the mind drifts to old crushes or secret possibilities. Sometimes love finds its way outside the tidy lines of marriage. A travelling musician stays for a summer, leaving behind more than songs. A miller's son is seen too often at the Thatcher's cottage, always with some excuse. A borrowed tool, a message from the market, a loaf of bread forgotten on purpose. The villagers notice, of course. Eyes are everywhere. Still, most look away, at least until the scandal is too ripe to ignore. These hidden loves do not always end in heartbreak or ruin. Sometimes they simply flicker and fade, a spark in the dark, leaving behind a sigh, a smile, or a regret so small it can be folded away and tucked into the bottom of a hope chest. Sometimes, though, the consequences are harder. A baby born at the wrong time, a marriage hastily arranged, a family feud reignited by jealousy or shame. Yet even these stumbles become part of the village story, woven into the tapestry as surely as the best-laid marriages. The old women know the truth. You can marry for money, for land, for family, Marta says, but your heart will always have its own business. She tells stories, some with happy endings, others not so lucky, about love that survived in secret, that slipped through the cracks, that never quite died even when duty seemed to win. These tales, passed from mouth to mouth, become their own kind of wisdom, a reminder that every marriage is shadowed by the loves it could not contain. It is not just desire that flourishes in the margins. Sometimes it is kindness, the gentle friendship between a widow and her neighbour, the unexpected loyalty between two people joined by circumstance rather than choice. These quiet bonds too shape the world, offering consolation, company, the warmth of a hand on a cold morning. The village, for all its rules and rituals, is held together as much by these small compassions as by any law. For the young couple, these stories linger at the edge of their own life. They know the rules, they must to survive, but they also know the ache of wanting something more, the restless wish for a little adventure, a little mystery. There are evenings when they walk out under the stars, shoulders brushing, speaking in low voices about dreams and fears they dare not share by daylight. They promise each other to keep a little part of themselves free, even as they build their life together, a secret corner where hope and longing can grow untamed. Sometimes, love on the margins slips into the open. A boy stands in the road at dusk, singing a song too sweet for friendship, and the girl he loves laughs and runs to him, unashamed. An old man visits the grave of the woman he never married, leaving a stone on her headstone each spring. The village notices, sighs, gossips, moves on. These stories, for all their sadness or scandal, are cherished in their own way. Proof that life is wider and wilder than any contract can contain. You sense, as you walk home through the cool night, that the world is made richer by these secret loves. They add colour to the tapestry, give edge to the stories, remind everyone that even the most careful bargains are never the whole truth. Love, like water, finds its way, trickling through the cracks, soaking into the roots, feeding the garden in ways no one can predict. And so, while marriages are measured in land and livestock, in children and coin, the village heart is measured in all the loves that bloom along the edges, unseen but unforgettable. These loves, hidden and half acknowledged, give meaning to the everyday, making each story more complicated, more human, more real. As the moon climbs higher and the last lamps are snuffed out, you hear laughter from a shadowed doorway, the low murmur of voices that dare the world to notice. Love, you realize, is always there. On the margins, in the silences, in the spaces between one promise and the next, morning finds the village strangely quiet. There is a hush that lingers in the streets, a heaviness that settles on the rooftops, as if the whole place is holding its breath. You sense it in the way people lower their eyes, in the extra care with which a pail is set down or a door latched behind. Something has happened, nothing dramatic perhaps, at least not for the world beyond these fields. But within the tangled threads of village life, a vow has been broken, and now everyone must feel the tremor. It starts small, a rumour, a sideways look, a missed greeting at the well. The story grows in the telling, first whispered by the baker's wife to her sister, then carried by children to the edge of the market, until by noon even the priest is pretending not to listen as he rearranges the candlesticks on the altar. You catch snatches of it. A husband's temper, a wife's wandering eye, a debt unpaid or a promise quietly set aside. Nobody agrees on the details, but everyone agrees that something, somewhere, is no longer as it should be. For the couple at the centre, the world narrows. The house feels smaller, the light sharper, every word a possible spark to an old argument. Meals are quieter now, chores performed with a new, sullen efficiency. The laughter that once filled the rooms is replaced by the sound of chairs scraping across the floor, of boots stamping mud on the threshold, of a door that closes too hard. They have become strangers, bound together not by affection but by the simple gravity of shared obligations. Children, livestock, fields that must be planted, bread that must be baked whether or not there is joy in the eating. Sometimes it is a betrayal, the discovery of a secret letter, the echo of a voice raised in anger, the unmistakable fact of absence when presence was promised. The hurt settles deep, a stone in the chest, impossible to swallow and impossible to remove. Each tries to hide it, to keep up appearances for the sake of the village, for the sake of pride, for the sake of the story they once hoped to live. But the rift grows, neighbours notice, children whisper. Even the old dog seems to sense that the balance of the household has shifted. Other times, it is a quieter breaking, a promise made and forgotten, a kindness withheld, 100 tiny disappointments that wear away at the foundation. Until one morning, there is simply nothing left to give. The couple goes through the motions. He mends the fence, she bakes the bread. They nod to each other across the table, each remembering when that nod meant more. The village reacts as it always does, with a mixture of judgment and sympathy, of gossip and awkward generosity. Some take sides, others offer advice. Marta brings a loaf of bread, muttering about forgiveness as she sets it on the table. The priest calls, offers a prayer, tries to mediate with stories of saints who forgave even the most egregious betrayals. The children are sent to help with chores. Neighbours offer to mend a roof or share a harvest, hoping that kindness might bridge the distance where words cannot. Sometimes it works. There are couples who find their way back from the edge, a shared memory, a crisis that demands unity, a forgiveness offered slowly, painfully, one day at a time. The process is never easy. Trust, once broken, returns only in pieces. But there is hope in the effort, a stubbornness that sometimes grows into a new understanding. The marriage may be different, softer perhaps, more cautious, but also more honest. Other times, there is no return. The couple drifts apart, living side by side but separated by an invisible wall. The village adjusts slowly, reassigning roles, finding new routines, letting the old story fade as new ones begin. There may be sorrow or relief or simply resignation. The children grow up, the seasons turn, the house endures, its walls echoing with what was lost, but also with what remains. You notice too the way the rest of the village responds. Some couples, watching the drama unfold, tighten their own bonds, holding hands a little longer at the table, speaking words of kindness that might otherwise go unsaid. Others worry, wondering if the same fate awaits them, if the bargains struck on their wedding day are enough to weather the storms of time and change. There are lessons if anyone cares to learn them. That love, for all its power, is fragile. That vows, no matter how solemnly spoken, require daily tending. That forgiveness is a practice, not a miracle. The village tells these stories again and again, not just to judge or warn, but to remind itself that marriage, like every other human thing, is never perfect, always unfinished, always worth a little more effort. In the evenings, when the gossip fades and the houses glow with lamplight, you walk past the home of the couple whose vows have broken. There is still life there. Children laughing, a dog barking, bread rising in the oven. Not all is lost. Even broken vows can give way to new beginnings, to second chances, to a kind of peace that comes from letting go. And as you walk on, past houses where laughter lingers and others where silence reigns, you realize that every marriage is a risk. Some break, some heal, some settle into something new. The village endures, weaving each story into the fabric of its memory, hoping that next time the vows will hold. Spring returns to the village as quietly as forgiveness, in pale light and soft rain. Old quarrels seem smaller in the fresh green air. The first buds appear on the apple trees, the snowdrops rise stubbornly from the thatch of last year's grass, and everyone's boots grow muddy with the hopeful work of turning earth. In this gentle season, you begin to see the stubborn resilience of people who have lived through sorrow, who after broken vows and cold silences, wake up and try again. Not every marriage is granted a second chance. Some wounds never heal, some couples drift too far, their lives slowly separating like streams after a flood. But more often than not, the business of living leaves no room for endless bitterness. The world must be tilled, the sheep must be mended, the bread must be baked whether you're angry or not. And in this daily labour, a strange sort of forgiveness sometimes grows, unexpected as daisies in the ditch. You notice it first in the smallest gestures. A door held open, a bowl of soup ladled out on a wet afternoon, the silent passing of a cup of cider at the end of a long day. No apologies, just a softening at the corners, a gradual relaxing of shoulders. The village has learned, as you have, that forgiveness is not an event but a process, and it creeps in quietly, never asking for acknowledgement. Sometimes forgiveness is helped along by necessity. When a child falls ill, the couple who could not speak for days find themselves working side by side again. He at the hearth, she fetching water, both praying to the same small God for mercy. In moments of crisis, old wounds blur. "We'll talk later," she says, and the words, though plain, carry the weight of a vow renewed. They both know that later may never come, or that when it does, the anger will have softened, the wound less raw. Neighbours help in their own way, a loaf of bread left on a stoop, a basket of eggs, a note tucked into a pocket. Let it pass. Marta, wise in all things except tact, sits the couple down and tells them her own stories, about fights that lasted a winter, forgiveness that took years, love that returned in odd and unexpected ways. Her laughter makes it seem possible, even easy. Spring brings other second chances too. Widows and widowers eye each other anew at market. A quiet bachelor plucks up courage to offer wildflowers to the midwife who caught half the village's babies. Second marriages are not so rare here, and the business of arranging them is both simpler and more honest than first unions. There is less fuss about dowries and family pride, more talk about comfort, help, and the possibility of gentle companionship in old age. You see it in the way a widower smooths his hair before calling on his neighbour, how a widow laughs shyly at a joke she has heard 100 times, but never from him. The village is kinder to these couples, perhaps because everyone knows what it is to lose and try again. The children watch with open curiosity, how love, which once seemed fixed and final, can find its way back in, softer and wiser. Forgiveness sometimes means letting go. There are couples who decide, after long struggle, to live separately under the same roof, partners in business, if not in heart. They tend their children, their land, their memories, and ask for little else. It's not the story the village tells at feasts, but it is a quiet truth that everyone respects. For others, the second chance is about renewal. They find each other again not in grand gestures, but in shared tasks and new habits. A walk in the fields after supper, the tending of a garden, the reading of a story together by the fire. Sometimes love returns, shy and slow, like a cat that creeps in and curls at your feet, only when you stop trying so hard to call it. There are new beginnings of all kinds. Children grow up and leave, the house grows quieter, and the couple finds space to talk again, to listen, to remember what brought them together in the first place. The old wounds become stories, the quarrels become jokes, and the future stretches out not as a threat but as an invitation. The village, always watching, always remembering, learns to celebrate these second chances as much as any wedding. There is a wisdom in this, a sense that what matters is not perfection, but persistence. Not flawless love, but the willingness to mend what has been torn. As summer approaches, the air thick with the promise of hay and honey, you see the couples of the village walking together in the twilight. Some hold hands, some walk apart but at the same pace. Their shadows mingle on the road, long and hopeful, and the world feels large enough for everyone's mistakes, everyone's dreams. In the end, second chances are less about starting over and more about carrying on, about making room for forgiveness and surprise, about holding space for love to return in its own time, its own shape. The business of marriage is never finished. It is a daily act, an ongoing hope, a stubborn faith that, no matter how many times you fall, you can always try again. As dusk settles over the fields, you watch the lights go on, one by one, in the cottages and farmhouses. Behind every window is a story of love broken and mended, vows forgotten and renewed, hearts lost and found again. The village, stitched together by these stories, glows with the quiet courage of people willing to risk their hearts one more time. As the sun arcs higher in the summer sky, you begin to notice the hush that comes with familiarity, a peace, deep and slow, that seeps into every corner of the cottage and every furrow of the fields. The years have softened the sharpness of youth, dulled the sting of old quarrels, and burnished the laughter so that it glows from within, golden and quiet. The marriage, once a new and awkward thing, has become something else entirely, a rhythm as sure as the turning of the seasons, a comfort that neither partner could have imagined on their wedding night. In these quiet years, the days bleed together, marked by the simple rituals of survival and care. The couple rises before dawn, moves through chores in easy silence, and meets again at midday beneath the old oak tree with a shared loaf of bread and a flask of cider. There is no need for grand declarations. Love has become woven into the fabric of life, present in the smallest gestures. A scarf draped over tired shoulders, a hand steadied at the edge of a rut, a smile traded at the end of a long dusty day. Their children, now grown, return from time to time, trailing news of distant places and new customs. The house is filled with laughter and chaos for a day or two, but always returns to its quiet, steady pace when the visitors leave. The couple sits together by the fire, recalling stories from the early days, of feasts and failures, of lost tempers and long walks, of the first awkward touch and the last bitter quarrel that ended inevitably in forgiveness. Neighbours come and go, old friends pass away, new ones take their place. The couple grieves their losses, celebrates their joys, and learns to treasure the ordinariness of their own lives. There is contentment here, a gentle gratitude that hums beneath the routine. They have built something together, not through magic or fortune, but through daily effort and the willingness to keep choosing each other, again and again. As the years roll on, the couple grows older, their steps slow, their hair silvered. There is less urgency, more patience. Illness may come, and the business of marriage becomes one of care. Medicines fetched, soup spooned, a cool cloth pressed to a fevered brow. In these moments, love reveals itself not in passion, but in constancy, not in desire, but in devotion. They sit together on the porch, watching the sun set over the fields they once tilled side by side. The world is quieter now, but their hearts are full of the memories they have sown and reaped, the stories they have written on each other's lives. They speak of the future not with fear, but with the calm certainty of people who have survived much, forgiven more, and found enough joy to make all the trouble worthwhile. The village too grows quieter, its lanes and gardens carrying the marks of many such lives. Young couples look to the elders for guidance, and the old, for their part, offer advice with a smile. Knowing, as only the experienced can, that every marriage is unique, every partnership a tapestry of mistakes and miracles, of stubborn hope and silent endurance. In the stillness of these late years, the couple comes to understand that love is not a prize to be won, or a bargain to be struck, but a practice, a daily art, sometimes clumsy, sometimes graceful, always unfinished. They have learned at last that happiness is not a thing to be chased but a byproduct of patience, persistence, and the courage to remain, even when it would be easier to walk away. The world changes, and so do they. There are losses yet to come, partings yet to bear. But as night falls and they hold hands in the soft glow of the hearth, there is only gratitude for the chance to have shared so much, for the luck that brought them together, for the wisdom that grew from 1,000 ordinary days. If there is a secret to marriage, they think, it is simply this: to keep going, together, no matter what the world brings. In the hush before sleep, they give thanks for each other and for all the small invisible stitches that have bound their lives into something lasting and good. And now, dear listener, the candles have burned low, the fields are quiet, and the last story of this long day has been told. Wind down, 300 plus words. Let the world soften around you now. Feel the day slow and stretch, the gentle rhythm of breath and memory winding through your chest like the turning of the seasons. All the noise, all the quarrels and laughter, all the wild dances and the solemn vows, let them settle, gentle as dust in the golden light. Think of a quiet cottage at the edge of a village, windows glowing in the dusk, smoke curling from the chimney. Inside, two hands rest together on a scarred table, two hearts beating in time with the hush of the world outside. There is no rush, no fear, just the soft peace of a long life, well shared. Let your shoulders loosen, your jaw unclench, your thoughts drift from the troubles of your own day. You too are part of a story like this, of effort and hope, of forgiveness and persistence, of the small stubborn faith that grows where love is planted and tended season after season. Breathe in, slow and easy. Let the air fill your lungs and the quiet settle around you. Know that you are enough, that your story matters, that every gentle act is its own kind of miracle. The past is here to guide you, not to haunt you. The future waits, soft and unwritten, at the edge of tomorrow's dawn. You have travelled far tonight, through weddings and winters, through quarrels and reconciliations, through years that pass as swiftly as the shadows at sunset. Take comfort in knowing that every day is a new chance, every evening a chance to rest, every night a gentle closing of the story so far. Now drift. Let the weight fall off your shoulders and sink with me into tonight's slow unravelling of the past, right here on Historian's Diary. Sweet dreams.